Yeah, pretty hardcore. Good to be here with you. I got to tell you, my luck is fluctuating. One league I'm dominating, the other league I'm doing terrible, absolutely terrible, and frankly it's quite embarrassing. But I'm glad that you're here joining us, hanging out. And what can I say? It's been a long day, but I'm ready to get into some fantasy football. I'm feeling it. All right, things are going to turn around for me. I'm feeling it. Just on a side note, if you happen to have Travis Henry in your fantasy cocaine ring, I don't. Then you won last week. Congratulations to you. That was a good pickup. I should have known. When I was drafting for my fantasy cocaine league, I let him slip out. I thought I would get him in a later round. Didn't work out. But congratulations to you. He's obviously the MVP in most cocaine ring fantasy leagues. All right, here we go. We're going to get to it. And as always, I rank my top 5 players at each position, and that's kind of what we do. I might throw in a few side notes for you, but that's kind of what we do on a week-to-week basis. And this week will be no different. Actually, it'll be a little different. You'll see when we get to the wide receivers. We'll start right out with the QBs. Number 1, I like Tony Romo versus Cincinnati, and I really don't need much of an explanation for that. Romo puts up giant numbers. Cincinnati allows teams to put up giant numbers. Really, it's all going to fall into place. Don't read too much into the T.O. complaining about not getting the ball, even though I'm not making excuses or apologizing for T.O., but I'm just saying don't worry too much about that as far as how it might affect his fantasy production. He's going to be fine. He's going to be fine the rest of this year. Next season there might be some issues, but he will get the ball a lot in this game against Cincinnati, and he will produce. And Tony Romo is just going to have a field day against the Bengals. So he's my number 1 quarterback of the week. If you have him, you're sitting pretty. Number 2, I like Drew Brees at home against Minnesota in the Monday Night Football game. Now, Monday Night Football kind of does something to players, and certain guys react better and play better because they're on such a big stage. Drew Brees is one of those guys. He's going to have a nice week against a Minnesota secondary who can't seem to stop anyone. If that front 5 isn't making a push on the quarterback, they can't stop anybody. Everybody made a big deal. Well, they improved their defensive line, and nobody will be able to. Listen, if your corners can't cover anybody, your defensive line is irrelevant. It really is irrelevant. If wide receivers are open and corners can't cover them, a good quarterback needs 2 seconds. I mean, 2 seconds to get the ball out and make a play. And Minnesota is allowing people to do that. Look at their record and look at their defense against the pass. It's embarrassing. Number 3, I like Jake Delhomme at home against Kansas City, another team that is known for not stopping anyone. Jake Delhomme really had his first nice week last week. Now this week is Steve Smith's 3rd week back, I believe. Things are starting to click for Carolina, and you'll see that this week as Jake Delhomme will put up nice numbers against Kansas City. Don't buy too much into that win last week over Denver from the Chiefs. To me, that's a fluke. The Chiefs are not a good team. They caught Denver napping. And Carolina won't do the same thing. They will spank Kansas City in Carolina. And Jake Delhomme will put up big numbers, as will Steve Smith. Number 4, I like Phillip Rivers going on the road to take on Miami. Phillip Rivers has just been a really nice fantasy quarterback this year. So you can go ahead and plug him in. Don't worry too much about that. I think he may have had somewhat of a disappointing week last week, but still it wasn't too bad. It still wasn't too bad. He's still one of the top fantasy QBs in football right now. And this week at Miami, no reason to believe that he won't keep putting up nice numbers. Number 5, and this is the last week I'm going to do this until he shows me something big. And this is his chance to do it. Peyton Manning comes in at number 5. They're at Houston. Remember, just 2 short years ago, this is the same team that Peyton threw for over 400 yards against. Just had a giant day. And Houston has been kind of weak on defense this year. Peyton Manning, I think Jeff Saturday it'll have his 2nd game back. Listen, if it's not going to happen this week for the Colts and Peyton Manning, if big things don't happen, we could be in for a long season. Sorry, Joe. But I'm putting Manning on my list this week, and like I said, he's on probation. He's on top 5 probation. I'm just saying it. All right, running backs. Let's move to the running backs. My number 1 running back for the week is Adrian Peterson. All right, they're on the road at New Orleans for Monday Night Football. Listen, New Orleans is a shootout team. They shoot it out with everybody, and it works sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. But one thing is always for sure, they will allow the opposing team to put up big numbers in some way, shape, or form, and no one can stop Adrian Peterson, even with a sore hammy. He will light New Orleans up. Light New Orleans up. Mark my words. Number 2, Marion Barber. At home. Dallas is at home against Cincinnati. We went over this with the quarterbacks. Marion Barber, the bigger story in that Dallas game last week against Washington wasn't T.O. only catching 7 balls. It was Marion Barber only getting 8 touches out of the backfield. Oh, come on, that's just poor game planning. You can't win if you have top 5 running back in the league and you're not even getting him the ball. Look for them to not make the same mistake 2 weeks in a row and for Barber to have a giant week against Cincinnati at home in Dallas. Marion Barber comes in at number 2. Number 3, and here's a guy, and this part kind of makes it, if you're not in a point per reception league, maybe throw out this number 3 and replace it with whoever you want. But Reggie Bush in point per reception leagues is thus far the MVP at running back. Sounds crazy, but he is. He is catching. He has more receiving yards than rushing yards, and his rushing yards aren't that bad. He's got over 200 rushing yards, all right, but he has even more receiving yards and a lot of catches. This guy is shredding point per reception leagues, and if you have him and you're in a PPR league, you know what I'm talking about. Or if you've played him, you know what I'm talking about. Reggie Bush is the real deal this year. Even if it's not point per reception, he's still going to get you decent value because of what he can do and all the combined yardage he puts up. So, Reggie Bush comes in at number 3. Number 4, LaDainian Tomlinson. He's starting to feel a little better. It's obvious his production has been going up steadily week by week. People were a little worried about him this season. Is LT going to be able to do it? Is he hurt? I remember before last week, Darren Sproles was one of the highest picked up guys in fantasy leagues worldwide. But Sproles is being put back on the shelf. LaDainian Tomlinson is indeed still the man at San Diego. And at Miami, look for him to flex those muscles a little bit more. LT will have a nice week at Miami. I know they just spanked New England 2 weeks ago, but San Diego's a different monster altogether. Number 5 on my list, a rookie. This might be the first time a rookie has even made the list, but this guy is the real deal. From where I'm at here in Central Illinois, we get every Bears game. All right, so I've really got a chance to watch this team, and I'm not a Bears fan by any means, but I've got a chance to really, really watch this team and see what they can do. And I got to tell you, Matt Forte is the real deal. If you can get your hands on him somehow and get him on your fantasy team, if you're in a keeper league especially, this is a guy you want to hold on to. This guy could be a top-tier running back in the next couple of years. I'm talking top 5. I'm not joking. You heard it here first. Unless someone else told you earlier, then this would be second or perhaps third. But you did hear it here. Mark my words. And Matt Forte this week at Detroit is going to have a nice week. Listen, the Bears, I know the Bears very well. Their first instinct is to run the football. All right? That's what they want to do. That's by nature, they are a running team. If that doesn't work, then maybe they'll let Orton throw the ball. But it will work against Detroit. They will be able to just run and run and run some more, and Matt Forte will have well over 100 yards and at least 1 touchdown. Guaranteed it. And you know what? He's been catching some balls out of the backfield, too. This Matt Forte guy, just trust me, mark my words, top 5. Top 5 running back.